I missed my conversation about how ridiculous boob armor is.
What?
Okay, so you know how in a lot of like art for like female armor, there's cavities made for boobs.
Yeah. The whole boob armor.
And the fact that it's actually plenty dangerous. And guys have armor problems too in fantasy.
Yeah.
Those pauldrons, they don't need to be the size of two of your heads.
It's fantasy. It's not gritty realism.
I know.
That's like
I prefer my female armor, chainmail and bikini. Thank you very much.
Red Sonja style.
So
this is old school.
I was gonna say, where's your Red Sonja pinup? I have yet to see it.
Well, there's no Red Sonja pinup. However, I am currently wearing a chainmail bikini.
Oh, nice.
Oh man.
Just underneath all this. Yeah. You have no fucking idea.
Is it worth it though?
I feel so sexy right now.
You feel super sexy and prepared.
I do.
Like, I got nothing against sexy armor, but just like boob plate armor, as someone with boobs, I'm just like, ow, my sternum. That's all I can think of.
And as someone with hairy nipples, chainmail bikini has its drawbacks. a lot of pulls here and there.
Oh, man.
You could say as someone who once had hairy nipples, even.
Welcome to Honor and Gaming Podcast. Today we are talking about dungeon mastering.
Yes,
game mastering.
Game mastering. A topic near and dear to at least.
GM.
It's technically all the same thing, but for the sake of technicality, reality is, so for the sake of technicality, Dungeons & Dragons is dungeon mastering. In Shadowrun, I don't know what it is in Shadowrun. Shadowrun is the game master.
It's game master.
Yep.
It
In
defaults.
White Wolf, it's the storyteller.
Very good, yes.
Are there any others that I'm missing? It's game master most of the time. But
in Deadlands, you are the marshal.
The marshal, that's right.
Well, for the simplicity of labeling this podcast, it's going to be...
or DM alternatively.
Bullshit.
Perfect.
I want specific names for the specific rule systems.
That's why
I am doing this for Hank out there. Yes, Hank, I know you were the one that has been listening to us 17 times. Thank you for that. Also, move out of your mother's basement.
Okay, well, I am your host. Coliotron, also known as Galen, and I am with today...
Joe, I don't know why I'm here. I got stuck in an alternate time loop.
He's actually here because we watch Game of Thrones before we do the podcast.
I do not know why you're here yet.
I don't know why I'm here. I never do. I'm still riding this gravy train to nowhere, and it is going nowhere because no one's promoting it. Galen!
I'll explain why I'm here, Joe. So you can make slightly witty retorts, and I can make more witty rejoinders. That's why you're here.
You know what? If I can be the foil to make you feel better, you are welcome.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth, also known as Jinxie on the internet. I'm here representing the person who wants to GM, and tried at one point, but it never quite got off the ground. So I still want to try because,
And yes, Hank, she is also the representative female, and she is a real female.
So I have a question. I hope Eric listens to this. So I have a question.
And the question is coming from whom? Who are you?
It's from me. Oh, I'm Ezra Twitch Online on everything. I'm playing Town for Honor again. If there's anyone out there, hit me up. On a side note, I was gonna say, did you stop GMing because the first few games didn't go really well, or the game never came through, or like Eric, you put the entire party on the rails that are more rail-like than your average Call of Duty Century Train mission,
I prefer my.
I was like, fuck this, I'm out.
I prefer my rails to be Time Crisis based, where you're literally a rail shooter.
Yeah, like that, exactly. Well, except no, because in Time Crisis you have a pedal.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking no pedals, no nothing. Just aim the dot where it goes and go where the story says.
Typing of the Dead style. Which, by the way, if you've never played Typing of the Dead, play it. It is a fantastic game.
Well, it wasn't because of rails at all. It was, we just had a bunch of other things we're doing, so...
I was turned off by the obnoxious rails.
So let's go into that.
No, I was talking about Elizabeth's
no,
campaign.
I was talking about Eric's game.
Yeah.
Which, don't get me wrong, I believe in Eric's ability to be a good dungeon master. However, Eric, if you hear this, no more rails. No more. At least don't start the game like that.
Hey, question, fellow DM/GM. What are rails and how we should avoid them?
Okay, what rails, also known as railroading, is a bad DM habit. I mean, the reality situation is every game has to have some amount of rails in the sense like you have a protagonist, you have an antagonist. I mean, some stuff's happening in the world. But rails is when the DM doesn't want players, he just wants an audience. That's what rails are. More simply, it's like when you force the players down certain paths just to make the story what you want the story to be, which is not for, it's for like writing, it's not for role playing.
So if we were to give an impromptu example now, you 3 guys are in the dungeon of Dredgemore. There is wet dungeon mildew that emanates from the walls. You can go left, right, or forward. As a group, what do you collectively decide to do?
I go back.
We go back.
The door shuts behind you. Slam!
You go left?
The door shuts. Slam!
This is a great example.
There are 2 options. Wait, what is your next option that you'd like to take?
We split the...
I listen.
Uh-huh.
Which direction seems more interesting?
You hear goblin chanting coming down from the furthest corridor ahead of you.
I'm scared. I don't think we're ready to take goblins. We've just been a fight.
Slam!
So we fight goblins, guys. That's basically what railroading is.
Yep.
That's railroading. It's to be avoided.
It's the
at all
illusion of
costs.
choice.
Yeah, it's not even an illusion. It's,
Oh no, illusion choice is fantastic.
illusion of choice is way better.
It's
Railroading.
a shittier version of illusion of choice?
It's illusion of choice with no illusion of choice.
Okay.
It's the worst.
So if we do a tally, pro tips for DMing for all you noobs out there,
Hi.
give your people choices. Actual choices.
That
Bible
ha-
choices.
Yeah.
Actual choices that have consequences. That is the highest form of the art. And the very bottom is no choices. There are no consequences. Which, you know, if you remember Mike, no good.
All the choices, no consequences.
Mhm.
Oh, that's
You-
a little bit better than no choices. I didn't
It
find that
is.
many choices.
Yeah, choices. It was just...
Here's a great DM tip, actually, on that specific topic. A lot of times DMs are tempted to overcomplicate things for the sake of overcomplication. Look, if the party doesn't get put from point A to B, and they have a horse, and someone asks, hey, is the boat big enough to fit the horse? Just say yes. Just say yes. It will take so much time. It is unbelievable.
And I was keeping track of this. It has been 4 minutes and 56 seconds in the DM talk, and yes, you brought up the horse topic. I was expecting that.
Yeah, man, I can hold a grudge. I'm just putting it that way.
So, on today's podcast, we got 2 of our DMs that DM most of our games. And
2 very different
it's
styles of DMing, by the way.
2 very different styles, but both fun.
Yeah.
So, they're the ones who's going to be doing most of the talking. And me and Elizabeth is going to be...
We're going to be learning with you.
We're going to be learning. Well, I did a couple, but it was only in 3.5, and it was in high school. And the last one I did last year wasn't bad at all, but I kind of made my DM style better in a way.
Well, better for, I mean, everything's a matter of taste. Some people like hack and slash. I mean, shoot,
Yeah.
we're getting ready to start a 4th edition game, and, you know, a lot of people, 4th gets blamed a lot for, like, oh, it's just all mechanics, but you can do really fun stuff with 4th, which I'm looking forward to that. And we could do maybe a podcast researching 4th edition, or give it a shot or something. That'd
An
be
actual
fun.
play?
That
Yeah.
would be fun later on. Actual play, I don't think it would translate well. Just talk about the strengths, the weaknesses, and it's different.
Oh, no, yeah, we're going to go
It's
through all
very
that.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to go through... Later on, we're going to go through 5e, 4e, 3.5, Pathfinder, the Star Wars, the Shadowrun.
Yeah, we'll just go over all the systems. I mean,
It's kind of a redux of a thing we
Yeah.
already did. So.
Well, I mean, we'll do each system individually. I mean, I've got like 30
Oh,
of
yeah.
that alone. You know, I could do
Yeah.
it for an hour.
What was your favorite one to DM out of all of them?
Oh, that's very difficult.
Not easy.
Joe, why don't you take this question first? I didn't even mean to think.
I really did like the Star Wars one a lot. That was very nice,
Mhm.
which, by the way, they're coming out with a blanket generic rule system for that,
Ooh.
which I'm looking forward to. But I think we talked about this one once before. So I'd like
Yeah.
to-
Yeah, we did, but not in a DM stance.
So why did you like to run that game specifically?
Specifically, it was the dice mechanics that's based around it. It's success or failure, but there's a lot of narrative freedom involved with it.
Mhm.
I think one thing that we were doing when you were running the game, there was a misfire of a blaster, but we got a critical success. And look, whoa, what's this? A sign gets blasted and knocks off a whole bunch of stormtroopers.
That was
yes.
actually a pre-designed plot by someone who exercised very powerful character ability to change narration.
Well, that's...
And they also, I think, used the fake point. It was
Mhm.
actually Cobalt.
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, no. I don't know. The thing is for me at least at this point in I guess what you call it's not like a career, but in the hobby, I've been DMing forever. I kind of have like a tried and true format I use for most of my games in the sense that I don't develop strict plot lines because I think that's never going to work ever. You know, you make a wooden keep, the players burn it down. You make a stone keep, they'll figure something out. And it won't be go in room by room 9 times out of 10 unless that's what they like to do, which most players I play that's not really their style, I guess. And people are generally smart, you know. If it'd be dumb for the person to do it in real life, a lot of times, even if their character's an idiot, somehow he finds a reason not to be.
Yeah. Well, so on that, I want to start DMing games, but I have a background as a writer.
Yeah.
So what would you recommend for people with a writing background who's very used to just populating everything by themselves and having everything go just on their own rather than letting people drive the story and see where it goes?
Forget everything you know. No, that's
Ah.
the reality situation is the best, at least to get started. For a writer, I guess, where you could have the most fun, where you get the most player input, would just be using the Dresden rules, which I know you guys are already doing that. For people who don't know, the Dresden Files game, which is based in the Fate role-playing system, it uses fudge dice, has the way you build characters in that is also you build the world with the players at the same time, and you can use that same basic format for almost any game system. I highly recommend it. And there's other online tools that do similar things. There's a lot of Kickstarters to do the same thing, but the basic Dresden system works pretty good. As far as being a writer goes, honestly, just don't worry so much about the plot and focus on the antagonists, their goals, their allies, and then what they accomplish when the players aren't bothering them. And then just kind of try and break it down, you know? Like, motivation is really important, I would say, for the, develop strong motivations, and the story kind of just writes itself at that point. You don't need to try and guide it, which is a mistake a lot of people have. And this is honestly the failure of pre-mades in general. Like, we're going through that pre-made Rise of the Rune Lord. I've run once before. I've run a few pre-mades in my time. I kind of like, I'm playing in the one with you, Joe, and I don't like pre-mates. I just don't.
His character keeps trying to jump ship and just leave every town.
Well, that's not on purpose. I'm actually purposely finding reasons to stay in, which, look, actually, this is a great DMing thing that I would love DMs to know about and talk to the players about, which is not all metagaming is bad. There's like the sin of metagame in like the, I guess, popular nerd culture now. Like, oh, metagame, you just can't metagame. You've just gotta play your character to the hilt, and that's ridiculous. The reality situation is a little bit of metagaming is necessary. Your players need to find reasons for their characters to stick together, and that's really not your job as a DM. Like, your job as a DM is to let the players know that they have responsibility to find reasons that they should be together. Your DM, in that particular situation, your DM responsibility more is about just, like, making sure, like, no one's an asshole at the table and everyone, like, you know, doesn't ruin the fun for somebody else. I mean, some of DMing does not happen in the game. Some happens, like, in side conversations with people. Like, hey, man, you're kind of, like, forcing everyone else to break character so you can maintain character. How about, you know, we switch that around because you're one person and there are 3 people. You know?
Yeah, that's not the trend. I'm kind of with you. The pre-made, it's interesting to run, but I got to trim out a lot of fat with it. And at the same time, it's one of those things where it's walking in, you are the heroes, you are the chosen ones, and there's not much deviation from it, which is a little bit of a bore.
It is the all-time fantasy trope. I mean, name one fantasy series that's popular that doesn't start with, like, some schmuck on a farm.
Game of Thrones?
No, fantasy, not modern fantasy.
Game of Thrones?
I guess. No. Technically, Ed Stark is just out, but yeah, you're right. It doesn't follow the child, but I mean, I'm talking like Sword of Shannara. Basically, all the Shannaras. The Sword of Truth series.
Aragon.
Lord of the Rings, you know, where the trope kind of originates. But the trope doesn't originate, origination, the following person. I mean, like, so on and so forth.
Beowulf.
Yeah, Beowulf. Well, no, Beowulf.
Beowulf's a warrior.
Well, yeah, Beowulf, they don't go into his childhood. He just kind of shows up like, I'm a badass. I'm gonna fuck this dragon. What do you think about that?
And sometimes that's the best character to follow. It's like, he's already a badass, watch him work. And then struggle.
Let's see, another DM tip, which a lot of DMs give out, is rampantly steal from all sources, but not ones that are recent. Everyone just saw, like, I don't know, a movie or something, like let's say Baby Driver, right? We have a player, we're going to do a Shadowrun game, we have a player who wants to make the baby character for Baby Driver. That's all right for the player to do. As the DM, if you lift that whole crew, you're looking in for the whole night's going to be jokes. Like if that's what you want, do it. If you're trying to run like a serious gritty campaign, don't lift Game of Thrones characters. Figure out your own or lift something from like before that. 80s fantasy has a bunch of great stuff. Like who'd The Witcher rip off?
No.
Not a clue.
You don't know? God, I can't remember. I'll look it up. Someone asked a question. Joe can answer it. One.
Let's see.
So, Joe, I actually have a question. Now, we get this all the time with Eric and Cobalt, me, Ezra, Dan. When there's a difference in a character style of play, like...
Oh.
Yeah, like, we have the min-maxer, we have the door kicker, we have the purple mohawk, we have the black trench coat, and...
that's fine. All of you guys have to get along and play together, and I have to have fun too. That's it.
Yeah.
Very simple.
It's pretty simple. I mean, if you're talking about catering to specific play styles,
yeah.
I never do that. I mean, they never come in like, try and figure out what interests people. Now, of course, you want to do that. There's almost any dungeon master guide in any system has, especially the modern ones, have like a chart where they talk about what interests the player as a person. Like this guy likes solving puzzles. This guy likes solving riddles.
I think 4th edition and then Pathfinder both have that where they label players as this.
Yes, very hardcore. And 5th edition on the DM's guide. But the reality situation is if you just work on making a believable world with internal realism, where the laws of magic or divinity or whatever, where everything kind of makes sense, so it's immersive, and you just kind of like put stuff in that makes sense for the type of story you're trying to write, and everyone knows the type of story you're trying. That's one big thing I would say is sit your players down before you make characters or anything, and let them know the kind of game you want to run, and what you're trying to accomplish with the game. If you want to be gritty, that's really difficult. I've almost never had success pulling out a gritty game and having it stay gritty. It's not necessarily a bad thing. You have to roll with the flow, so to speak.
I definitely some truth to that. Dan, one of our buddies, who's also a DM. By the way, his name is Dan Miller, so yes, his initials are DM.
That's I've never noticed that before.
Yes.
You just mentioned I've known him since.
But he was going to run the Curse of Strahd for some of his friends, and one of them really wanted to play this jester kind of character.
Ooh.
Like, hey, I'm going to make fun of everyone. Hey, Strahd, yeah, what's up, your mother? And that doesn't work for that kind of gothic horror setting. So,
well,
is he gonna have fun murdering somebody?
It's just not gothic horror,
Yeah,
it's like Dracula versus was it We Are the Night with the vampire reality show?
Yeah,
that's a great movie. If you haven't seen it.
Fantastic.
Let's see. Basic DM stuff. Tips for world building: start small. The temptation is always to start grandiose. Leave your history loose. I mean, everyone wants to copy like the Pathfinder setting. Really good, really in depth, lots of stuff. That is like. Unless you're going to get paid to put that out, don't put it out. Because 90% of the stuff your players are never going to see.
Yeah.
Focus on what your players are actually going to interact with. Fill in the blanks as you go along. Make sure, you got to learn, if you want to run a really compelling game, you have to learn how to answer weird lore questions on the fly with the answer that makes sense. And then make a note of it and tie it into the overall history of the world, which you're also making on the fly, so that you don't look like a moron later when you say, the goblins are from Underdark. And then later you're like, they're from the Feywild. And then I was like, wait, what?
So then that leads to another question. How much do you, as a DM who made the world, and then how much is you made it up?
Oh, okay, so you're saying. As far as prep goes, when I'm prepping for a campaign setting, I probably sink around, at least me personally, I probably sink about 14 hours into campaign prep. And that's everything. Antagonists, the map of the world. Right now I'm using Incarnate, which is a really good free online tool. Check it out. The map of the world. I used to try to do whole histories, -3, 5, 750 down, like 3 pages on line paper, just historical bullet points and stuff back in the day. But I realized that 9% of stuff the players never ever see. That's really a waste of effort.
Why are people there? What happened recently? That's all you need.
Yeah, that's all you really need. And if dates come up, make some shit up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's my advice.
No one has to know.
Yeah. Let's see, what else? Since we're talking about DMing, we should talk about fudging dice. I don't know how Joe feels about this, or how much he has fudged dice, or how he feels about it in general.
I'll fudge dice once in a while, very rarely.
Oh, to be clear, fudging dice is when you roll your dice behind the DM screen. The argued advantage is it hides the creature's, like, if the creature rolls an 8, and the player sees, and the player has 22 armor class, and the creature hits him on 8, he knows that creature has a high attack. And so it leads inevitably to a little bit of the metagame. You're like, holy shit, this guy hit me on an 8 is ridiculous. You know, even if you're trying not to.
See, I like rolling them open just because of that. Oh, fuck, it hit me on an 8? Yeah, motherfucker. You stepped in.
We just had that last night in the Pathfinder game, and I was so surprised when it hit me.
What was that thing?
It was a giant fucking spider robot.
Thing.
Yeah, but I had like 30 AC and it hit me for like, yeah.
That kind of does bring up another question. So, kind of modifying encounters. Say you are doing either a module or pre-made, or just pulling up a monster out of the bestiary, and you want it. Do you guys often like modify it to make it a little more interesting to fight?
Absolutely. So with that one, we'll use that as an example.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, fuck, they gotta fight something here. There's like a giant scorpion thing. Ah, that looks too tough. What do I have here, stat-wise and like miniature-wise? Oh, I have a giant spider robot. Sweet, we'll use a giant spider robot. And then draw out the map room. It's like, okay, yeah, we need to add some decorations. There's torches over here. You fly over there. What's with the torches? Well, there wasn't anything before. Now there is.
That is video game logic, friends.
Yeah, no, that absolutely is. It's like, wow, what happened here?
Glowy things.
Glowy things. It shuts down his glowy thing. So this monster had an automatic attack where it would shoot laser beams out of its eyes once around. So it's like, okay, we'll turn down the laser beams. So.
Yeah, that was really cool. I mean, I really liked that a lot. It was a lot of fun.
I would have to say, one of the reasons I'm excited to get back into 4th, even though I haven't played it for a while, is 4th is the most streamlined for, I guess, miniature combat, but part and parcel with that streamlining is they do a really good job of giving all the monsters really interesting abilities that aren't, like, it's a little better than I'd say, like take D&D 3.5 through all of them, right? The monsters have, like, a couple of tricks, unless they're caster, right? And casters are always dangerous in those editions, right? But generally, when you're just talking like combat monsters, right? Like all you do is swing a sword at you. They really don't have much. They might get like a little bit of a bonus or something there, but in 4th edition, because it's so combat oriented, they really did a good job in the system. And even the most basic monsters have really interesting abilities. Like there's a kobold, like leader, you know, and instead of just being like a little stronger, he also has the ability where if you attack him with something, he can choose to redirect the attack to an adjacent kobold ally, so he's not taking it. And like
throws his ally in the way.
And then like all the goblins, his basic goblins are like shifty in the sense that whenever you miss them, they can move, you know, and so combat.
Which does not provoke an attack of opportunity.
Yes, correct. They get free movement or they don't get hit by people who are trying to hit them. And then say like the most terrifying dragons are 3.5 dragons, because they're all full level casters. Since 3.5, they've toned around dragons considerably, and they have breath weapon, tails, like wind buffet. Their main thing is they can fly, and it's hard to reach them. And then they basically, I mean, they're just big numbers, you know, big full hit points, big attack bonuses, big saves, big damage, right? And then you take like the 4th edition dragon, right? Well, he has all that stuff, and then he has the ability where if you just move behind him, he gets a free attack on you with his tail. You know, and then he has his breath weapon that recharges. And then if he's at half health, his breath weapon comes back where it normally wouldn't. And then if he's a big dragon, he has an aura of he just does 20 damage to everything within 20 feet of him every turn. And so, like, I mean, those things are a lot fucking scarier. I mean, you have to go in like you got to prep to resist. I mean, you have to be really conscious.
And with that, you know, if you like that idea, just download or maybe borrow a friend's copy. Borrow a friend's copy because that's legal. And
no, you can download ebooks for free. Not free, but if you pay for them.
Oh yes, pay for them.
Pay for them, yeah.
Like everyone does.
RPGs,
yes,
like everyone does.
Like everyone does.
Like everyone who can afford it does.
Yes, exactly. And then just pilfer some ideas from 4th edition. He is right. The combat in it is actually very unique and interesting. And
have you played 4th?
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Actually, you know what? Rather than go off on the tangent ourselves, I will just recommend another YouTuber, Matthew Colville. He actually does R&D for a lot of games and writes like character lines for a lot of games. But he has a whole YouTube episode talking about lifting monsters from 4th edition. It's really good. Check it out if you're interested in something like that.
I'll probably check that out myself.
Yeah,
so I think I'm the only one here. I don't really pull monsters out of any book or anything like that. I actually make mine. Yeah.
90% of my monsters, other than like the basics, like orcs, zombies,
Yeah.
are just reskin stats that
Mhm.
I pulled out of the book and just reskinned it. Honestly,
Oh, really?
I reskin a lot of stuff.
I do the
Yeah.
exact same thing, except I'll maybe like add 2 or 3 abilities
Mhm.
from this monster that would make sense for this monster.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Yeah, there's a source I found a long time ago. I can't even remember. It was online, and it was just how to make a monster. And ever since then, I've done it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just like that. I mean, there's always tools for building your own stuff. I mean, if you want to go overboard, just play GURPS. You have to build everything from scratch, and that's a fucking nightmare. I mean, every single thing people run into is a character basically that you've built. I mean, it doesn't get more in depth than that. But they have they have splat books and support books and stuff. I just don't really. I just invested in the base system to be able to run it basically. Trying to think. DM discussion. I don't know. Liz, you're the one who's starting DM. Do you have any questions?
I've been asking the questions that I
I know,
have
but
actually.
you're-
But
Yeah. Do you have any more?
As the represent novice DM, perhaps for that, again, one person that listens to us 17 times a day, maybe he or she, most likely he, because it's Hank, I know, quit calling me. I'm not your friend. I never will be your friend. I don't even have Facebook. I don't know how you're messaging me on Facebook. Hank is a
needs
loser.
friends.
Hank needs to get out of his mother's basement. Fuck you, Hank. Fuck you, home.
Hey, you're the one who put your number on the internet, so.
I was trying to get gamer girls, thank you very much,
Oh,
not
Jesus.
gamer Hank.
No. Never mind, I'm not going to that.
Admittedly, it was a...
That's a discussion I'm not having.
do not start that boulder down that hill.
Yeah.
Well,
It was a mistake, I admit that.
So what's your question, Joe?
Well, my point is, as the representative for the novice GMs out there, this might be an opportunity to ask those on behalf of Hank.
So you asked the question. 'Cause I mean, it's hard for me, man. I literally DM'd since 4th grade.
Mhm.
I've played in a grand total of 8 games as a player,
Mhm.
and I've been playing D&D pretty much steadily my whole life. So I've always had a game going. I've always been the DM. I don't fucking remember what it's like to be a novice DM. Like,
Yeah.
like I'm trying to remember
See,
back
I
to
know how
grade
that
school.
feels.
Yeah.
You know, I'm
So,
trying to remember back to grade
I got a
school.
question
Like,
then. For a new DM,
Yeah.
what system do you recommend for them to
The one that you're
actually
most
learn?
That's
familiar with.
the one you're most familiar with. Look, if you're just starting out DMing, you don't want to jump into the system. You want to.
No. More like they haven't done anything and they want to get into it for the story. Play first?
Yeah. Well, yeah, you say that, but I didn't play first. I mean.
Yeah.
Reality situation is I started DMing with just a monster manual. I didn't even know there were rules for the game. I just kind of figured out from the glossaries, like, all these numbers kind of mean something. I'm going to make a game up, you know?
Yeah.
And then I found out, like,
There's other books!
4
Oh
years
my
later,
god!
Yeah, there's already rules for all that shit. I was just having people like, oh, you want to play Lizard Man? Sure, here's the stats. Boom. You want to play this? Okay. I ran into problems at the beginning because people were like picking Asmodeus and stuff. It was the first edition. I'm like, all right, you can't play Asmodeus. That's too strong. Like, you know, then I found the challenge rating. I was like, okay, everyone can play challenge rating 3 stuff, you know?
Yeah.
But it was straight Gygaxian. I mean, dungeon crawls and graph paper. I even had a frictionless room. If you didn't enter the room, you just whee! If you don't hit it at the right angles, you go in a pit.
So, what system would you, like in your situation, where you have to be the DM?
Okay, that's a good question, actually. And so, but the answer is multifaceted because the answer depends on who's your group, right? Is it a bunch of your kids? You should probably run D&D 5e or something else equally simple. You know, you might even go to like a board game that's similar to D&D, like The Sim.
Dungeon World, actually.
Or Dungeon World. Dungeon World is
Super simple.
Great for kids, you know?
Yeah.
If it's a group of young adults, say high school age, as you guys, the easiest system for you to all learn would probably be D&D, and it's the most mainstream right now, so it has the least, I guess.
Well, how about people our age?
I'm getting there. You see
Yeah.
me working out? I started with children, and now
Hence
I went
the
to high school
multifaceted.
age.
Yes,
and
yes.
now I'm going to college.
There's a reason why I'm asking this question.
If you're a college student and you have time, you can run.
Which edition of D&D for the
You
teenagers?
can run whatever you like. Oh, for D&D, generally, I would say 5 is the best right now if you're just getting into the systems, right? 3.5, Pathfinder, 4th edition are also all great systems, but they're all considerably different from 5th edition. 5th edition is definitely unique. It's also the simplest. I would say 5th edition is the closest to 1st edition, but with just a little more crunch. When DMs talk about crunch, that's slang generally for how much math there is in the game, right? Like there's some systems that are great, but if they have bad crunches and a bad mechanic system, but a good setting, that can lead to problems. And the opposite is true, like where you have a great setting and great mechanics, but not really a great setting to practice those mechanics in, although that's less complicated.
Yeah. Well, then what
Oh,
about?
right. So, if you're college, hey man, find out what's around. Experiment around. That's you're in college. That's what you're supposed to be doing anyway. There's a ton of great systems out there. There's systems for every genre. For horror, there's Call of Cthulhu, All Flesh Must Be Eaten, which has multiple one for Zombie World, one for Cthulhu World, one for Psychos. For sci-fi, you have Alternity, which is space opera.
Also, Starfinder now just came out.
Yeah.
Oh,
Star
yeah.
Wars. If you're trying to hey, new Star Wars movies come out, man, pick up.
Inspiration.
Yeah, pick up Edge of the Empire.
Spoiler: Han Solo dies.
Everyone knows that already, Joe.
That hasn't been a spoiler. I've never seen a less spoiler than Dumbledore dies.
One of our 17
Yeah.
Hey, Joe,
fans,
spoiler.
sci-fi.
Bruce Willis is a ghost.
In Die Hard, he's a ghost.
Yes.
Holy shit!
I know.
I never knew.
That glass
So the reason I ask these questions. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
More.
So many times.
If you want to be able to run anything, you can always pick up GURPS. GURPS is very, very popular in Europe, actually. Germany specifically, oddly enough. Although I don't know now. I don't know what the new situation is with gaming over there. But
GURPS would be popular in Germany.
it's super popular in Germany. It uses metrics for one.
Yeah.
but no,
Metrics would be
the
popular in
reality
Germany.
situation is GURPS is there is no flavor to GURPS. It is all mechanics. All the books are mechanics, but it is a basically flawless rule system, which you can run any setting with. The default setting is people like multiverse time jumpers, so you really can't run anything in the core setting. However, the main disadvantage of GURPS is unless you have invest a lot in slat books, it takes a metric fuck ton of time to prep just like a single hour of gameplay. If there's going to be any kind of combat or mechanically intensive stuff, because you build everything from scratch. Everything's character. You have a starship, uses the same character creation rules as the players did to make their characters. You got a goblin, same deal. And then there's no real clear cut how much is a reasonable challenge? If you spent 100 points to build a goblin with 300 point characters, that means they can take 9 goblins total, or there's no real clear. You really wing it on the difficulty. Some systems are very good about saying this is about approximate challenge rating counters. You can usually fluff numbers, but if a system has a recommendation this is a challenge rating X, it is for players of X, yeah, listen to it, because if you do it incorrectly, Evan's going to be real unhappy with you. Or I'm going to be really unhappy with Joe.
It was a mistake. Nobody died after I realized it was a mistake.
It's gonna be in a future podcast called D&D Stories. So
Well, I will say, pro trip, a level 5 fighter and a level 5 fighter that is also an ogre are not the same thing.
So the reason.
We don't
Go ahead.
know gaming stories on the road. So what else?
Well. So the reason I'm asking this because I recently had someone ask me
Oh yeah.
what he wants to get started with, and he's older than I am. So
How old is he?
he's Joe's age.
My age?
Wow. Way to throw your friends under the bus there.
Yeah, thanks for
Outing ages.
Yeah.
Hey,
Does he have a glorious
it's not
red
my
hair like
fault
you?
that everyone here is 3-4 years apart, okay?
I'm not older than you, Joe. How old are you?
33 to...
He's older than you.
I don't know.
You're 85? I'm 84.
Yeah.
I'm older than you.
Ah.
Everyone just thinks you're older because you have a beard and you're bald.
Glorious head of hair. That is a misstatement. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Yep. Well, that's just it. Somebody who has no experience with it. I recommended.
Okay.
What was that game? The little D&D light.
Oh, Dungeon World.
Dungeon World. I recommended Dungeon World, and
He might have.
it's so simple.
Yeah, it's simple, but the other situation, while an older person might not have experiences in, say, role playing, right?
Yeah.
They do have experiences in entertainment. What you should have done, in my opinion, right?
Yeah.
What I would have done in that situation is I would have asked them, what type of movies do you like? What type of books do you read? And then I would have recommended them a system based on those preferences. Of course, I would ask them too, how good, do you like a lot of math or no math at all? Because those are important questions too.
Yeah, that's true. I actually just said Shadowrun because I love it.
Yeah.
And I made him listen to all the podcasts, other ones that do Shadowrun oriented.
Okay.
And it was Yeah, he's been listening to him, so it's really
man,
cool.
if he wants to drop in for Shadowrun, nice thing about Shadowrun, an advantage. Okay, so here's an advantage. The thing about DMing is all systems have pros and cons.
Yeah.
One of the major pros of Shadowrun, while it's a extremely robust system mechanically, which is not always a good thing, and they have problems with their publishing, to say the least. While that is all true, because characters in Shadowrun are they only ever really get 20% stronger than they really ever are.
Mhm.
You already are good at whatever it is your character's good at. You just become better at other stuff. Generally, you become a little bit better at what you're doing. But you know,
Oh yeah,
that much
yeah.
better. It's very easy for players, and because of the way Shadowrun adventures are set up, where it's like very episodic and nothing's really connected, they're just jobs. It's very easy for players or characters or players who can't make it all the time to just jump in and out. Whereas like in D&D, when players that show up, it's like a hassle. It's a huge hassle.
It's board game night from there on. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's no longer D&D night at that time.
As a DM, I would say, look, to the players, as a DM, this is not necessarily DM advice or anything like that, but please understand that role-playing takes commitment. It's like doing a good campaign, and especially in a system like D&D where everyone has to kind of be there. It really sucks for everybody else when you don't say what you're going to do. And I understand real life is the way. We're all adults. Everyone's an adult. Everyone's got shit they got to do. But part of being an adult is making your commitments and sticking to them. Whether it's, hey, we're all going to meet together and watch this football game or play D&D or go to our job.
Or pay child
Or
support.
pay child support. Wait, what?
Yeah, there's the little full head of hair child running around somewhere. I don't know who it is.
Is that the guy who keeps calling you?
Hank?
Hank? He could be. He's trying to find his daddy.
Hank,
Daddy
I don't
Joe.
love you. Calling.
Wow.
I'm a bad father for a reason. Jesus.
But yeah, make your commitments. And as a DM, I guess for DM, doubly so for a DM. If you as a DM, you really can't bail. Like as a player, you're kind of fucking everyone over, but everyone can limp along. As a DM, if you just cancel out the blue, you're just fucking everyone over.
Although life has its reasons. If you're
Yes.
sick or grandma's dead,
yes.
or you're having your first child,
and by
fuck
sick,
you, Hank.
And by sick, we mean cancer. We don't mean you have the flu. Just wear a mask. Get over it.
A mask was weird. I'm not
Yes,
gonna lie.
yes, Ellie.
Weird.
Ellie, wear that mask.
Obviously, if you have like highly contagious, don't get everyone sick. But if you've got the sniffles, I mean, come on.
Oh yeah, you can power through that.
Oh, I'm hungover. Well, you should have been out drinking last night. Or
You should have brought some for the party members. Come on.
Or just or that.
Yeah.
Like pop a couple aspirin, or drink a pot of coffee before you go to bed. Bam, no hangover. Little tricks.
Yeah, well,
Not necessarily DM advice, I guess, just life advice.
it's game advice. It's fine.
Advice.
One thing I was remarking about, just once again, I don't know. I guess this is more of a general game talk now, or how gaming and life coincide at this point. But one thing I was pointing out some other day is if you're worried about Alzheimer's or anything like that, and you're playing Luminosity to try and get rid of the Alzheimer's, you really should be playing role-playing. I'm not joking. Because of the parts of your brain that it hits, which is all of them, it's one of the, and because it's constantly developing new dendritic. That's also, it doesn't matter. Point is,
Science.
if you look into it, you'll find there's actually a ton of health benefits to engaging in kind of like open, creative projects with other people. And D&D is a way you can do that casually, and not really be too stressed. No one's gonna, just.
Well, you
your
have
friends.
fun doing it, so.
Right, but the point is it's active. It's not passive.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
There's a big difference between sitting down with 4 people and playing Mario Kart, which while fun is a passive entertainment, it's something you're just consuming.
Yeah.
And actively creating situations, humor, social life.
Oh no, yeah, that's what I mean.
There's a huge difference physiologically as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like when you guys want to go left, I slam the door. When you want to go right, I slam the door. So.
Yeah, and then we beat him in real life. And
Yeah.
that's creating a social situation.
Yeah. And then it creates the neurons in my mind. Like, wow, that was dumb. I shouldn't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Help me, they had me chained to the desk. They don't let me leave.
DM Force Joe, shut up.
Yes, Galen.
But to be fair here, with Joe, I'm going back a huge step back with pre-mades. I've been having a lot of fun with the pre-mades you guys have been running. Curse of Strahd, I'm loving it, and I haven't played the Curse of Strahd game since 2.0.
It's because from your side of the screen, there isn't really much of a functional difference between a pre-made and.
No, I'm just saying you guys can do it right.
Right.
I mean, I've played others that suck.
Situation as a player, the functional difference between a pre-made and a game that is well established. I mean, not like a sloppy just pick up game, but like a game a DM is put a lot of work into.
Yeah.
Right. There's functionally not much difference from the player side as long as the DM's decent. Right. He's gonna make it good and fun either way, and the story's gonna keep going along either way. You know, if you get off track, it'll get you on track somehow. Right.
Yeah.
But from the DM side of the screen, playing pre-mades, I honestly, unless you just do not have time to do your own stuff, I honestly recommend against it. Because the reality situation is the players are going to do stuff that's not accounted for through the book, which is going to render giant portions of the book useless when you try and, like, get them back on track. Okay, they killed this major NPC, or this major NPC died because there's no reasonable way without breaking immersion that I can save him, and yet, here he is in chapter 8, and he's the BBEG. Well, now I have to not only create a new BBEG, but I have to create whole chunks of story to introduce him into the pre-made, so he's in the spot where he's supposed to be when he's supposed to be there, and the reality is, at that point, why am I not just running my own game?
Yeah,
Yeah,
a lot of it I'm
anyway.
just, again, with the one that I'm running, trimming out a lot of fat. I mean, there's so many side bosses and side missions.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it, it's like, why the fuck is this even here? It's not relevant. I mean, it's...
I'm talking about that haunted house that we didn't even see.
Oh, I forgot that you guys ditching on the haunted house. Yeah, that was...
We didn't even ditch. We just
Just
didn't know it
ripped
was
there.
It's supposed to be a good part of the adventure, too, but I was just like, you know what? There's no need for it.
Rip it right out of the book.
Yeah.
This
Not literally.
This,
you know.
as a DM, this is also my problem with pre-made settings. As at least a DM who has a lot of fun with with being a DM. Right? I like being a DM, that's why I do it so much. You know, I'm not. It's not getting foisted on me. I genuinely enjoy it. But like, Forgotten Realms, right? Take Forgotten Realms books. 2 things wrong with Forgotten Realms. 3 things wrong with Forgotten Realms. I think off the top of my head. First thing wrong with Forgotten Realms is it has a ton of Mary Sues running around. And the players all want to meet them, and they all want to fight them, and they're all...
You said I would get to meet Elamaster, I still haven't done that.
Yeah, that. Second thing is you might get a huge fanboy in your game, which is nice until he starts arguing and trying to correct you on like lore decisions you've made.
No, Elamaster would not be here at this point in time. Currently, he would be traveling the ethereal plane looking for the last relic of Pendor.
Mm-hmm. And then the last problem with Forgotten Realms is no open map space. You look at a Forgotten Realms map, everything there, everything is labeled, everything has a story, everything has a history, which means the second your characters go to any of those spots and they're decently high level, that giant portion of the book becomes, within a couple sessions, useless because it changes the political landscape just by being there and being players.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're buying a book that's literally giving you nothing substantive that's going to last for any reasonable amount of time within the campaign, and you're just opening yourself up to a lot of problems.
And Elmaster's been here, and here, and here, and here, and then he did this thing here, and then he saved the princess there.
And that's super annoying. I mean, those were great examples, though, Joe. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
you're
you for
welcome.
chiming in. You caught exactly what I was going for.
I am great at being annoying, aren't I?
Ah!
No, that was spot on, man. Like, you see players doing that. Also, don't slap them right away. Have a conversation with them, and see if you can convince them to like stop doing whatever that behavior is that's annoying everyone at the table, whether it's not showering or just arguing with the DM all the time. And if they still keep doing it, just remember the age-old adage, which is no D&D is better than bad D&D, or no role-playing is better than bad role-playing.
Yeah.
And I'm not passing judgment. Everyone likes different stuff, but in that situation, certain people are just not going to mesh. Certain people don't have imagination, too. I once tried to run a game for someone who was totally into it. He wanted to play it. He had no imagination. Like, literally, he was like a crippled person. I'd never seen anything like it before.
So, I have another question for new DMs. Now, I don't know how you guys do it so much, but I think everyone has fun at your games. I don't really see a problem.
I never have fun at my games. It's pure torture for me.
Well, we keep you chained. It's
that's
a difference.
true, yes.
Yeah, feed you Diet Coke.
Yeah, we feed you Diet Coke. It's
Trying to
great.
shade you.
So,
It's the only nutrients I get.
so
Say that because you're addicted.
to me,
cigarettes, it's nice.
yeah, to me, I feel like it's more of a. I have fun doing it too, but I feel like everyone else at the table should have fun as well. And when somebody's not having fun, now, not having fun for any little reason, or that they're just not having fun with their character, you mentioned this to me like way back of, what was it? I think you said to somebody, hey, it seems like you're not having fun with this character. Do you want to re-roll some new character or something of the sort?
Okay,
And-
there's a couple things you can do when it comes to. There's two types of not having fun, right?
Yeah.
There's the type where the person the character didn't develop the way they liked, or another example is a lot of newer players seem to make Batman, and Batman doesn't really do well in D&D because guess what? There's 4 other people there, and if you're just off by yourself, you're just kind of an asshole, just like Batman.
Just like Batman.
And
My parents were murdered.
To be fair, almost everybody's
right,
parents.
and that's one type, right? And the way to approach that is the way to approach that I would say is approach the player. Be like, hey, are you having fun? If they're not, having, and it's always good to do like, especially with new groups, like take a like survey after your first few games when you're just starting a new group or you and your friends are just starting out, and be like, what did you like? What did you not like? Try to put in more stuff that everybody liked and less stuff that people were bored with, right?
Yeah.
Don't put in that many riddles. I mean, honestly, even though riddles are kind of like a staple of D&D from way back in the day, like the Gollum riddles and stuff, they're generally a terrible idea to put into the game because one, most people aren't that smart, and the second reason is most riddles can be read multiple ways. If you are going to put riddles in your game and a player comes out with a good answer that's better than the original answer, just say that was it. Because if he says ambition and it makes sense, and you insist
You
that
just looked at me because I
Yeah,
dealt with
I'm-
that recently.
yeah, this is cold. So
However-
why don't you say tell us.
This is Cobalt, by the
However,
way.
I'm not gonna
Nudging
go
in on the
into that
podcast.
on a side thing. That's just something that I agree with. Riddles aren't unless you can be like, okay, there's a theme to the dungeon, but I'll break it for this thing because they give a good answer or something like that. But I'm kind of salty about that, so I'm a little bit biased.
Well, no, yeah.
I was going to say, however, that as someone who made their first 2 characters, like having to do with that, I have a weird situation for it, having to do with dealing with it right now as well as dealing with it then. When I made my first character, it was in a one-shot campaign. It wasn't anything, and it was
Was that
a
Angel
random
Song?
roll. Yeah, that was Alton Angel Song, my favorite.
He was one of my favorite characters as well.
In fact, I'd remake him again now that I'm more experienced and everything, just for some fun times and everything. But the thing is that because it was a one-shot, I couldn't get too attached, and because it was random roll, I couldn't get too attached either. It was just more of a, oh man, I really enjoyed playing that and everything. My second character, however, was a Shadowrun character. I poured lots of energy into that. I really enjoyed the character. I had thought of the entire backstory to the character and all this other stuff. And the thing that is most interesting about this is he died on the first run.
Immediately.
Immediately.
That's Shadowrun.
Part of it was an errata that, which also is very typical Shadowrun. Look up the errata. Very important. Climbing ropes is a lot faster than it is in the base book. It might come up.
Yeah.
But the important thing to note there is that it really changed. Like my next character, I wasn't as deeply invested into, and I think that that's a problem, as I'm finding with a D&D campaign that I'm in right now, for other players who are getting in, where you pour so much into your first character, you expect it to go a certain way, or not even that it goes a certain way, you have a picture of who the character is, and they don't pan out to be that way, and you end up really unsatisfied. See, I managed to mostly avoid that simply based off of the fact that my character died immediately.
Yeah.
So I didn't have any situation where that could happen, and the next character, I was up for them changing and growing and stuff like that. I wasn't as deeply invested. But as someone who's dealing with a player that is dealing with that right now, where they made a character that they kind of self-inserted, they're kind of really close to, they're really attached to the character and everything like that, but nothing's really come up that's put them in the spotlight or anything like that. How would you deal with that in terms of a DM?
Okay, that's a really interesting question. As far as for that player specifically in this specific case and specific things you put out there, I would say I would take the player aside, be like, I want to put you a little more in the spotlight. I know you've been kind of sitting on the sidelines. Are you happy with that, or do you want a little more interaction? Some people just like being on the sidelines. They like just doing the combat thing and then do that, right? And see what they had to say. And then being on that, I would basically ask them more in depth, because someone who generally puts that much work into their character has put a lot. They've written like a paragraph backstory at least, and just be like, look, man, I'm not gonna read this. Give me some bullet points. I'll try and throw it in the game,
Yeah.
Well, it's
and
more that
As far as for more general advice, because I said super answer, I would say in general as a DM, you don't necessarily have to, but I would stress to players and DMs all over the place. Look, keep it loose when you're making your characters. For God's sake, they're not going to end up the way you want because you have no idea what's going to happen. I mean, like, Christ. My half-orc guy is now, like, got a utility belt-esque Batman cape, and that was not originally planned.
Pocket spice.
It just
Pocket spice.
Pocket spice. It came up, like I was trying to save myself from the situation, and I had Cheyenne Pepper because he was a cook, and I had decided that he knew how to cook because he was tired of field rations. So on the few things I did decide to shoot about him, I had to have Cheyenne Pepper. So I threw it in the guy's eyes to buy myself a second. I realized that was so handy. I started just picking up random magical items and just whipping them out whenever it seemed remotely feasible, right? But initially he was not supposed to be that, but he's much more entertaining because I allowed him to develop, as opposed to like, this is my character's Batman. He has his parents it's players can sometimes make the same mistakes as DM where they narrate too much in role playing when not narrate, that's not the right word for it. They decide too much of the story at the beginning before the story's had time to develop.
Let me go a little bit more into detail, just a little bit more. The player in question doesn't really feel like he doesn't mind not being in the spotlight, according to him, like his response when he was asked about it, sort of thing. And he's more. He feels like D&D isn't for him, is what he got out of it. That role-playing isn't for him. That's what it was.
Yeah. He could be right.
Yeah,
I mean,
he could.
That's the reality.
Don't get me wrong.
Just be right.
Well,
Joe has just left the podcast, and Cobalt is now sitting in, apparently.
Well, it's going to end soon anyway.
Yeah, it's true.
He needed to get more diet. What does he drink? Diet Pepsi?
Diet Pepsi.
Diet
Cigarettes mostly.
Cigarettes, that's what it is.
But yeah,
and Tacoma is
like
flowing locks.
Like I said, I've run into players. D&D is just not for that person. I mean, the other situation is it seems silly to say it, but to have a good time, especially as an adult playing a silly game, everyone has to be kind of like, I don't know how to describe it.
I understand.
Everyone has to have some kind of interest.
More to do with the other things that happen in the thing. The worry more than anything that I feel bad about having to do with this player specifically is that I don't want to be part of what causes this guy to think that he doesn't like D&D if he actually would like it later on.
Gotcha. Well, I would just tell him to keep an open mind, and then if he wants to play later on, find a new group, try a different style. Maybe he'd be more into like a dungeon crawler. I don't know what you guys are doing. Maybe he'd be more narration.
Get out of 3.5. Go to Pathfinder. Go to 5e. Go to anything else.
3.5 is trash, by the way. Fight me if you'd like it. It is just not when you have so many other options to play D&D in, and so many of them are better.
That's the idea.
Why play 3.5?
You need someone to hold your hand with you when you're going into 3.5. You need somebody there.
Somebody. That could be the problem too. You guys are playing 3.5. I mean, if he's newer to playing, I mean, that's a ridiculously robust system with a lot of moving parts. He might be better off just going with 5th edition or like Dungeon World or like a lot of other stuff.
There's stuff happening, but the point is that.
Do you have edition haters in your? Is that what's going on? Are there edition haters?
Yeah,
he does. Edition hater personally.
No, I mean like somebody who's like, this is the only edition we played.
It's that the DM was the most comfortable. He had never DM'd outside of 3.5. If he's just more
comfortable playing 3.5, that's a whole different thing.
And he knows the system very well and how to DM it very well. The only problem more than anything is getting into 3.5 is really difficult. I actually have had a lot of difficulties with it, and I've played quite a few systems at this point.
Shadowrun's a lot more robust than 3.5 and a lot sketchier to.
The main problem with 3.5 is just the amount of possible information throughout all the books and everything, and even if you have access to all of it, going through all that stuff is a pain, man. But where this was supposed to be a DMing thing, not
additions is gonna come in the future, everybody.
Right now, we're just finding our pace again. We haven't been a podcast in like a month, so
it has been a while, but we're back.
We're hesitantly basically kind of circling the subject of D&D.
Yeah. Well, I also did hurt my arm, so I couldn't work on the computer for a long
I'm
time,
not
so
complaining. Emma's been really busy. It's work season for me.
Yeah.
Other thing to
Oh, before I forget though, we're talking about people not having fun. There's two crowds not having fun. There's people who are not having fun. They're into the game. They don't really like how things have worked out. That's generally fixable. Then there's people who are not actually there to play D&D, who are not having fun.
yeah.
Like who are on their phones. They're just there because their boyfriend or girlfriend is. This is what you do. You take a side. If they're with someone, you take a side of them as a couple. If it's just them, you just go, hey man, I like you as a friend, but you're obviously not into this, and it's bringing everyone down. Just you're uninvited.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an asshole thing to say, but the reality situation is you're hosting a specific event for specific people who want to participate in that event.
Yeah.
And you're not hosting an event where your friend who just wants to hang out and drink beers is just hang out and drink beers and just fuck with everybody. That's not the event you're hosting unless it is, you know?
Yeah.
And the reality situation is if you're not hosting that event, you need to nip that shit in the bud, even if they're your friend. It's not hard feelings. It's just like, look, man, this is what I'm doing, right? If you don't want to play Monopoly, don't come to Monopoly night. It's
Yep.
real simple.
So as a DM thing, because
Yeah.
I've wanted to DM in the past, I've not really DM'd. Like I had one dungeon crawl-esque adventure that I
remember
DM'd. I was wondering, having to do with DMing, which way. So I understand well enough how everything ties together in a big system, in a big world like
Yeah.
a political system,
Yeah.
and tiny things can have big effects and everything. The main problem that I run into when I think about that is I'd love to build a big world. However, I think that there'd be a lot of trouble with dealing with players are fucking things up in little ways and having to extrapolate long-term big effects.
That's
Now-
actually the best shit ever.
Yeah.
You perceive it as a problem, I perceive it as the goal.
The thing is that I'm wondering whether you would recommend, at least for newer DMs, whether they should go for the big scale stuff, go over a big. That you do a lot of work on knowing how the political climate is and how the players could you don't guess how the players will affect it, but as they go, you adjust it as it happens.
Yeah, well,
Or whether you'd recommend doing something more along the lines of a low political setting where, like, oh, they are working in basically they work for a guild or something like that, and they're trying to explore the new land or stuff like that, where they deal with very
we
low
gotta go
political-
fight goblins or bandits. But
Or,
not much
well,
politics there.
map the wastes or
Yeah,
something like that, where there's a lot of stuff that can happen, and they can run into villages and stuff like that. But
That's a good question. All right, so once again, all this stuff multifaceted, right? The easiest way to avoid politics is universal good and evil, where there are orcs, they're invading, fight off the orcs. Or there's a dungeon you need to explore, go to the dungeon, get the treasure there, right? Very straightforward, what I would call Gygaxi. After Gygax, the like dungeon crawly, Mountains of Madness stuff. There's really not anything happening, you're just going in there because you're adventurers and that's what you do, right? I mean, those games are fun enough, but the reality situation is, as an adult, what makes D&D fun is like kind of the world building and the political stuff, especially for the DM, right? Now, what you're talking about specifically, what I would say for newer players, if you want to introduce those aspects, is start small, right?
newer DMs.
Newer DM,
specifically.
sorry, not new players. For a newer DM who wants to create their own little thing, right? I would say start small. Don't start with the world. Start with a kingdom, or even like a town if you really want to get small, or like a province, and come up with an antagonist, right? Just a dude, who is the bandit leader in this case, right? You're just making stuff up, right? And the players have to stop it. And then to introduce the political element, the only thing you really need to do is think, why is he bandit leader? And bam.
Yeah.
The story, everything starts writing itself at that point. If you know the answer to that question, it's just let out the players figure it out. And if they do, they do. If they don't, they don't. And then as you extrapolate this out to more and more stuff, you realize you're just writing people who are just people, and a lot of the DMing comes in on the back end where the players do something. You just try and figure out how this person will react based on the type of person you created them to be. If they're a coward, do they run? If they're a dumb prince, do they fight when they should run? And you just try and work that out. And then as far as you try about small things can have far-reaching consequences, right? In a big world, if you make a decently sized world, a good socioeconomic, political clashing happening, right? The easiest way to do this is you put 6 antagonists in the game, or 6 or 7 antagonists, right? Not of all. I mean, they not even want to kill the character. They might just, this guy wants to be king. This guy also wants to be king. This guy doesn't want to be king, but he wants to control the kingdom. from the background, and you just you figure out who they are, why do they want to do the thing they want to do, what resources do they have, and then you kind of just map out in a real loose fashion. Just kind of map out. All right, if no one interferes with them, he will do these steps over the course of this amount of time. Right. If no, and only the players, by no one we mean the players, but as the players do things, they're going to start fucking with that. And then you extrapolate out, right? The players might not even mess with that guy directly. They might do something to the prince, but because the prince is now paranoid, he cracks down on secret societies, and all this guy's secret societies are all getting raided. And the players really directly didn't have anything to do with that. They were just trying to assassinate the prince, which at first glance is that's helping the dude out, but at second glance it's oh man, they failed, and now I'm getting fucked for it,
Yeah.
But it just takes time and effort. I mean, there's no easy way to make a really deep campaign world, and it's not the same. So common mistake is not the same as writing a book. It really it's just not, because you can't write the narrative. You don't know what it's going to be. You can only write the characters, and you can find out what happens with everybody else. And that's really the best way to go about it, in my mind, overall, after a lot of experience.
So,
Okay.
any little final things? Because
There is one
We're running
last
out of
question.
time.
I know that we're right about to run out of time, but I did want to ask a question having to do with a very important part about world building. When you world build and you're dealing with the religions of the world, how do you deal with creation myths? Because obviously your world had to have been created in one way, and people will have different ideas, different religions will have sprung up having to do with that. If you were going deep lore mind you, how do you deal with the different? Do you make sure they all work in and they just interpret it differently, or?
That's a good question. Okay, so there's a couple ways to do it. One of the popular ways to do it is all the gods are the same. People just have different names for the same gods. Another way to do it is all the gods exist independent of the things in the world. Maybe they created some things in the world, but they exist. They're not a manifestation of people's will or imagination, right? And the last way is they are a manifestation, and depending on the answer to that question would change all that. But as far as creation myths go, honestly, this falls under the. Remember I told you earlier in the podcast I mentioned I used to do giant timeline bullet point. Look, unless it comes up, don't worry about it. Make a few basic notes, and be able to riff some stuff. If someone asks a question, take a note of what you riffed, add on as you go. Because if you developing an in-depth creation myth, and then everyone's playing let's say, I'm going to make a super in-depth creation myth, and the characters make their party, and it's a bard who's only interested in singing about battles, a fighter, a sorcerer who's trying to contain his own magic, and a rogue who just likes stealing shit. Odds are all that work you put into developing that creation myth, never going to come up.
Gotcha.
Never going to come up. Yeah.
well, see you next time on Unknown Gaming Podcast. Bye.
Bye.